All right. Well, why don't we get into some of the takeaways from the action then? I think at the top of the list is the Bucks, a team that surprisingly enough, like is 15-6, a half a game back of the Celtics, one game back of the best record in the league, but just feels off in a way. And part of that is because they're a completely different type of team. This year, they're more of an offensive team after years and years of grinding out games and winning on defense. Rob, how are you feeling about the new Bucks at this point, particularly coming off of this Knicks win? Are you ready to say that like the version that could be pretty good, the version that we thought after the Dame trade went down, has arrived?
I think they're getting there. They're getting closer, but I don't think they've fully arrived. And if anything, that speaks to how good this team could still be. I just think they have room left to grow. But this was one of the most fully realized performances we've seen from the Bucks yet in terms of what their offense is capable of. And I think they've really course corrected over these last few weeks in particular. And the balance of their season is starting to tilt in a big way, where in some of their most uninspiring games, they would be down double digits within minutes, and they would have to score at incredible rates just to get back in the game. Now it feels like the Bucks are applying pressure. They're scoring so much, and they're looking lively enough on defense that they put you on the ropes. And they're not going to be a great defensive team with this personnel, but they're more energetic. Giannis is incredibly active, maybe in this game a little too overactive at times. I thought he was really getting after it, trying to make
Julius
plays
Randle
defensively.
was in his head, fam.
Definitely was in his head. And so, yeah, there's a fine line to walk there. But if Giannis is cranked up and playing that hard and working his ass off defensively in ways that can make a huge difference, and you're having Brook Lopez like looking super comfortable, swatting shots around the rim, stifling drives from guys like RJ Barrett. And you know what? Like Malik Beasley is not a go-to defender. He's just kind of a body you throw in front of a player like Jalen Brunson and hope that they bump a little hard when they roll over him. He honestly kind of is, but he's
new Drew, man. What are you talking about?
But at least he spares Damian Lillard from having to do that job in some of these matchups. And that's how you get 143 points, 37 points in each of the first three quarters.
So obviously you guys know I was extremely bullish on the Bucks coming into the season, and the reason why I felt that way, I felt like they would have an elite offense this year. That unit would be elite, meaning like every single game you could count on the Bucks to score quite efficiently because they could do it in multiple ways. Like they brought back enough shooting. Obviously, we know what Dame does, both in one-on-one and pick and roll. Giannis has won MVPs based on his offensive production. Brook Lopez, being what he is on offense. I felt like they would be able to bring an elite unit to bear this year. And finally, we're starting to see, like they were good. They've been good on offense all year, but they're starting to look scary on offense. And the scariest part, I think, for people who, are watching the Bucks right now is that, one, they're still not running enough pick and rolls between Dame and Giannis. I think Giannis is not really comfortable as a pick and roll setter. He's so used to dominating ball possession that I don't think he's sort of found his rhythm as a pick and roll partner. Actually, Brook Lopez is kind of better right now as Dame's pick and roll partner. But of course, that muddies things up because Giannis can't shoot. But I'm just saying, like, they still haven't even found that, which is going to, I think, ultimately be their most deadly weapon when it finally happens. When teams have to put two on the ball on Dame and Giannis is just running downhill. Because when he catches the ball on the move, even right now, it's so unstoppable. Which brings me to my next point about why I think they still have ways to grow. This Giannis isolation shit, I don't need it. I think, honestly, Giannis has kind of tricked us into thinking, oh, he's this foreigner. He doesn't care about ego and vanity. Like, he's so different from the Americans, and he doesn't care about looking cool is bullshit. The reason why he's still taking these pull-up jumpers and isolating from 30 feet and looking nasty. It's ego. It's not efficient. The Bucks are not playing at their best when Giannis is doing that, especially now that they have Dame. And so they still have stuff that they can clean up and get even better at, and to be third in the NBA in offensive efficiency while still having things that they haven't unearthed yet. And my last point, I know I'm going on and on, but I'm really excited about what the offense can do and why I contrast them with Boston a lot. Boston is still very three-point dependent. If the threes are not falling, they're kind of done. And the problem for them is that their stars don't get to the line enough. They don't get efficient, easy buckets enough when the threes aren't falling. Milwaukee's going to get to the line, man. Dame and Giannis are going to get them to the free throw line. And so all of the things I mentioned, plus that dynamic, I just think their offense is going to be not quite Denver. Let's not get crazy, but damn close. We're not going to talk about the defense.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring up the threes, though, because they did take 38 of them last night, and they made 23 of them. In fact, it was the fourth team in NBA history to hit at least 23 three-pointers and shoot at least 60% up from the field. And I do think you're right. There, a lot of the good signs are there, but I do think the three-point success has been buoying them to a large degree. And I wonder if, like, the big difference is that some of these guys that they've been taking flyers on, Malik Beasley first and foremost, but also your AJ Greens, your Marjon Beauchamps, those guys have provided enough and are that's a Woz guy right there.
A Woz notable, Woz stamp of approval.
He's on the list. But yeah, I think they are just like kind of crushing it from the outside as the Dame Giannis sort of pick and roll or just partnership comes to form.
Yeah, that's kind of the balance of it is, and honestly, it's a big reason why their offense has felt a little bit more layered and a little bit more dynamic lately, is they aren't running enough, as you said, Woz, like pick and roll between their primary guys, but they still run a little bit, and they do still drive a lot, and they do still do a lot of dribble handoff, and they're getting better at using those things to set up these tertiary options. And, you know, Giannis and Dame are going to get shots up. Chris Middleton still has a lot of room to operate and looked really good in this game in particular. And Brook Lopez is big enough that the ball is just going to find him. Like, he's a big enough target. You're just going to see him. But with guys like AJ Green and Marjon Beauchamp, like, you have to be a little more deliberate about looking for them, a little bit more conscious of where their spacing is on the court. And those guys are getting better at sidestepping around the contest to still get threes up and not just driving into trouble, which is something that I think a lot of role players can get in the habit of. So you're seeing a team that is at its highest levels thriving with good three-point shooting. When these guys hit, they hit another gear that's very difficult for any team in the league to match. But Woz, to your point, when they're struggling offensively, the fact that Dame is getting to the line so consistently, the fact that Middleton can operate in mid-range, the fact that Giannis is always going to be a force, not just getting to the basket, but on the offensive glass. Those are three great parachutes to have that prevent you from being a three-point reliant offense in the way that some teams, including Boston, can sometimes be.
And I just love the idea that Giannis, Dame, Middleton, or Lopez are always going to be on the court. Like, when people were complaining about the depth stuff, I'm like, man, even Chris Middleton, as diminished as he's been made by injuries, if he's anchoring a unit, there is a structure, there is an idea of how buckets are going to be generated. Sometimes you see teams, I'm looking at you, Michael Malone, when he puts out his hockey lineups, and I'm like, wait, how is this? How? What's the version of this lineup that scores buckets? You know, the Bucks have that throughout every single portion of the game while letting their stars play regular season level minutes loads, right? And that's really exciting too.
Why haven't we seen more Giannis and Dame pick and roll? Well, as you were suggesting, maybe it's more comfortability.
Giannis is not good at it. Giannis has not been, that's not traditionally been his role. It's like at the end of games, him and Middleton doing that pick and roll thing inside of the three-point line. He hasn't been that guy setting the screen at 30 feet for a guy and sort of making a read that way. Maybe catching it and then, you know, doing the 4-on-3, Draymond Green thing and making the right decision or just barreling to the rim. He's just not comfortable. That hasn't been his mode. His mode has been freaking initiator. And the bottom line is he's obvious. This is not a diss. He's not better at it than an all NBA point guard, right? Like, it's obvious what he should be doing. And I want to give a shout out to my man, Nate Duncan, who pointed out that Giannis don't really got the best hands. Like, it's an underrated part. Like, he's not really he doesn't have the softest hands. So again, like, these limit his pick and roll play as the roll man. But I think that's the only benefit of this long ass season. He's going to get better at it. But Adrian Griffin has to freaking tell him to run it. Like, there was a possession, and I tweeted about this, man, because Julius Randle was giving this guy the business. Him and Dame are on the left side and go to run a pick and roll, and Giannis just scraps it. And he's just like, nah, screw that. Give me the ball. I need to isolate and post up. And then he just threw it away out of bounds. And it's like, no, Giannis, re-screen, reset yourself up. Like, let's put Julius Randle, who ain't exactly Bill Russell, in a bad position in pick and roll. But these are things he has to learn and has to be held accountable for. He has to, like, let go of these bad habits, which, let's face it, have been the downfall of this team in the playoffs. Their half-court offensive execution. You know, these are not the things that have propelled you to the top of the sport, Giannis. Like, you've been stinging it up in the biggest spot. So he needs to it's going to take time. It's not going to be automatic. But I think he's going to get there.